Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome at PGE. This is our first half and second quarter results presentation. It will be held by Mr. Krzysztof Kilian, President and CEO of the company, and Mr. Wojciech Ostrowski, Vice President and CFO. My name is Przemysław Waślewski. I'm Head of Investor Relations. Before we start, very short usual technical presentation. We are sitting here in Warsaw in front of a large group of domestic investors and analysts, but even more people are following us through internet webcast. After a short presentation of ourselves, there will be opportunity for you to ask questions and chance for us to answer them. If you sit here, that's pretty easy. You raise your hand and ask a question. If you are watching us on your monitor, please send us a question to regular address pgresults@gkpg.pl or use a special form at transmission page. Then the question will be read out and possibly answered. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to warmly welcome you at our offices. Early morning, we published PGE Q2 results, and we are here to discuss them in more details and answer your questions. First, as usual, I'll give you a brief overview of the second quarter of PGE, presenting the highlights of financials, operating data, as well as update on other recent developments in our company. Later, I will hand over to Mr. Wojciech Ostrowski, who will give you more color on our results. And then we will, as usual, answer your questions following our presentation. And at the first slide, as you all have already seen in our results reported early this morning, second quarter of 2013 was a very good period for PGE. Our results have been very strong and are much stronger than most of you have anticipated. I underline this, if nobody noticed. Reported revenues amounted to 7.3 billion, 4% increase year on year. Even if we exclude one-off items, we still see an increase of 2%. EBITDA amounted to almost 2.4 billion, which represents a significant increase of 11%. When we adjust the number with LTC's impact, we see the number as relatively flat year on year, with only a 1% decrease. Given current market environment, it shows that we run a healthy and stable business and then are well prepared to face current challenges. These figures result in an EBITDA margin at the level of 32%, positioning us again on the top end among utilities in Europe and beyond reach of any competitor in Poland. Our net income amounted to 1.28 billion. Please note that it is currently by far the highest quarterly profit among all Polish listed companies. We still are the least indebted large utility in Europe with net cash to EBITDA ratio at the level of 0.4. We would like to stress that in Q2 we successfully closed a 1 billion zloty bond issue at the historically lowest price levels for Polish corporate bonds, only 70 basis points over WIBOR. This reflects our market position, the quality of our assets, and the strength of our balance sheet. Long-term contracts compensation have been in our results since 2009. Due to market conditions we all witnessed, they have remained and will remain in the picture for the next few quarters. As we can already boast this first significant impact of our efficiency measures implemented last year, over 200 million zloty of savings have been achieved in the first half of 2013. But details of this program will be presented later on by my colleague. And the next slide, our financial results was strongly supported by more than satisfactory operating data. Recently, seen lower dynamics of GDP, of the GDP growth is reflected in weaker than in the past demand for electricity in Poland and overall declining generation volumes. Demand for electricity in the first half of 2013 decreased by 1%. However, in the second quarter, we noted a slight increase of 0.1%. Generation volumes were lower by 0.4 in the first half of 2013 and 0.3 for the quarter two in 2013. As an absolute cost leader in Poland, we took advantage of this situation as an opportunity to exert pressure on our competition in order to prepare ourselves for the time when the market bounces back. Our efforts and commitment in having the best offer for the customers resulted in a significant growth of our retail market share and narrowing the gap between generation and sales. The volume of electricity sold to end users in the second quarter increased by an impressive 16% year-on-year, reaching almost 9 terawatt hours. Please note that this was achieved not at the expense of the retail sales profitability. The generation of electricity amounted to 13.6 terawatt hours, 3% lower year-on-year. However, structure of generation was of a higher value. We have sustained level of generation from lignite, even though we decommissioned Unit 9 at Turów power plant at the beginning of the year. Generation from hard coal decreased by 7% compared to last year. This is mostly the effect of margin optimization. Due to the lack of support for cogeneration, we were forced to temporarily shut down gas cogeneration at Lublin and Rzeszów CHPs, which resulted in total decrease of generation from gas by 2/3. Currently, only generation at Chorzów CHP is profitable only because gas used there comes from local extraction. The generation from renewable sources, excluding biomass, increased by 10%, and this doesn't include any production from the recently acquired wind farms. Please notice, however, that co-firing of biomass was significantly decreased, mainly due to the weakened economics resulting from lower costs of green certificates. Now I will comment on important recent developments in the company. Almost all you have followed recent news flow on the Opole project very closely. I would like to direct your attention to some very important developments that will shed some more light on this matter. Our decision to stop the Opole project started a heated debate in Poland, and as a result, Poland can be among first countries in Europe to develop and implement systematic solutions for the conventional generation market. We have reached a very important milestone in the ongoing discussion on the mid and long-term future for the industry. Earlier this week, I took part in a panel discussion on the future of the energy sector, among others with Deputy Prime Minister Janusz Piechociński, President of the Energy Regulatory Office Marek Wostrzyk, and Chairman of PSE Henryk Majchrzak. Such a gathering proves that finally all interested parties have a common understanding of current situation and are actively searching to find solution for a current burden of investment profitability and future risk to system stability. The most important conclusion is that a temporary capacity market is almost ready to launch already next year. As the regulatory body president explained on this conference, there will be support in the amount of several 100 million zloty available for existing capacities and future investments at a grid operator disposal, which will be funded through transmission fees. Such a temporary mechanism will allow for the development of a mature capacity market in the future. As you know, we have relaunched Opole project, and now it seems that it is possible to mitigate most important risks and make the project profitable and value creative for our shareholders. I will also give you a quick overview of other investment projects that we are pursuing in the group. First, this is Turów. We have announced a new tender for 460 megawatts capacity. We are expecting to receive the environmental decision in October this year and the construction permit early next year. And we are pursuing a number of refurbishment projects in current crucial assets in Bełchatów, in Opole. And from the wind farms, on the wind farms project, there is currently 42 megawatt capacities in the construction process, and a further 90 megawatts tender has been started this year. But of course, the great increase in our wind capacity will come from the recent M&A transactions. We have closed one of the biggest M&A transactions in Poland last year. After the acquisition of wind farms from Dong and Iberdrola, we are the largest electricity producer from wind in Poland, with total installed capacity of 269 megawatts. As you see, gradually increases its wind capacities from 30 megawatts in 2011 to ninefold that number in the third quarter of 2013. Transaction value of these transactions as an enterprise value amounted to 683 million and 366 million respectively. From acquired assets, we have established a subsidiary company, PGE Energia Natury, which can be translated PGE Energia from nature. This company will be responsible for wind farms development in PGE Group, utilizing both our own as well as recently acquired know-how and competencies. As you can see from the slide, wind farms we took over have contracted takeoff of both electricity and certificates, which secures profitability of this investment and hedges it from volatility of the markets. Also, they are of the high-end technical quality with above the average load factors in 2012. On top of the already operating wind farms, we took over a portfolio of development projects of total potential capacity over 600 megawatts. They are at various stages of development, but newly established company was created, among other reasons, to oversee their further development. And now I will hand over to my colleague who will take you through more details of our results, and then we will be ready to answer your questions.
Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see you once again. I think that, as usual, is the problem to find additional information after the presentation of our CEO, but I will try to give you some explanation why the results are like this. As you see on the slide number 7, the market situation changed, maybe not dramatically, but very much to when we compare year to year. The spot market decreased 11-12%. It means close to 20 Polish zloty in the price of the electricity, but the forwards, the difference is close to 50. It was partially offset by a decrease of the CO2 allowances. It is on the Polish zloty close to 15 PLN of the decrease of the CO2, and additional between 6 to 10 Polish zloty in coal, what is visible here, that 11% decrease of the prices of the hard coal. On the next slide is the confirmation what just was mentioned by our CEO regarding operating data. And what for us is very important, that in the second quarter we achieved the same production from the lignite, what is the most profitable in our group. Besides of the situation that we decommissioned one unit in Turów, number 9. This lower output from hard coal is mostly related to the optimization of the margin, because you know that sometimes the prices are on the level below the variable cost, therefore it's not make sense to produce, it's better to buy from the market. Regarding the gas-fired plant, it was just mentioned, lack of the yellow certificates. It make in some localization unprofitable, therefore we have the decrease of the production on gas. And the rest, cogeneration is roughly on the similar level as 1 year ago. Regarding renewables, biomass co-firing decreased, I think that in not just in PGE but in whole market. The main reason is the quite low price of green certificates, but the lower price of electricity and CO2, which the same at some value to this, and quite high value of biomass. Increase in the hydro is related to the better hydrological situation in Poland in 2013 in comparison to 2012, and about wind, you've just heard why it was some increase, that you remember that in third quarter last year we bought 2 farms and we have this increase here, and probably in the second half of this year it will be visible much more because of this new acquisition. And I think that what we see, the generation volume is slightly below last year, 3%, and in whole half a year 4%. But what for us is very important because of our long position on generation, that the sales on wholesale market increased 13% and retail 16%. And additionally, we see the same, that the market is slightly better in second quarter from the distribution perspective as well. The first quarter was slightly below last year, close to 2%. The second quarter is plus 2%. In half year, we have almost similar volume in distribution. On the next slide, the more detailed information about the financial results. And you see that in Q2 these results are very good, and when we are talking about recurred data are on almost the same level than last year, besides of the situation that the prices drop very much. We are talking about over 300 million the decrease of the income in our generation just from the decrease of prices in second quarter. In the full half a year, it is close to 700 million. But this result were possible thanks mostly 3 items. First, this tight cost policy. Second, that the prices on the retail market didn't drop so dramatically as on wholesale, and additional this increase on sales to end users. And as you see, the net debt to EBITDA is still in minus. It means that cash positive position in PGE Group. The composition by segments you see on the next slide, and you see that this drop in conventional generation over 400 million year to year was almost offset by the rest of segments. What I've just mentioned, that in conventional generation the biggest impact on the result had the lower energy prices, over 300 million, additional negative impact, the decrease of the income from certificates, mostly yellow, but the same the price of green, and additional cost of CO2. It was partially offset by cost of fuel, slightly below the lower cost of coal, hard coal, and the same the decrease of the biomass costs. This good segments, it means wholesale, retail, distribution and renewables. This is main item is the result from the sales of electricity in wholesale and in retail. This is second side of the certificates, the negative result in conventional generation. It means that positive result in retail, that this is roughly offsetted by retail. And slightly better tariff in distribution and good cost decrease in distribution. That I think that this was possible thanks very tough job of our salesmen, but the same of the people who look to the optimization of costs. And regarding cost, you have the next slide where you see the impact of the efficiency program, over 200 million Polish zloty impact this year, mostly in cost initiatives. The same we should say that the income initiatives which we announced 1.5 years ago really is, this moment we can say that impossible, because most of this income initiatives was related to the co-fired of the biomass, and the current situation on the market looks that is unprofitable job to increase the co-firing in the lignite production mostly. From other side, we are working on some additional, more deeper programs, and we will talk about it in the nearest months. When we try to cover this gap from this income initiatives in the near terms. And you see the employment rate decrease close to 10% in whole group, over 10% in main lines. That it is almost 5,000 people during last 4 years. That I think that it is the same visible that we are trying to do our best from the cost perspective. The next slide, this is just the confirmation. I think that you know very well about this, our bond program. We issued the 1 billion bond with the semi-annual coupon based on floating WIBOR 6 months plus 70 basis points. We used this money for acquisition of the Donk and Iberdrola. And in the nearest days, they should be quoted on the stock exchange of Warsaw and additional trading system managed by BondSpot SA. Thank you very much, and Przemek, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for questions. First, credit goes to people who made an effort and arrive on site. So if you have any questions. Piotr.
Hi, good morning. It's Piotr Dzięciołowski from Citi Handlowy. I have 2 questions to start with. Can you please give us indication what do you expect next year from your supply margins? Because your numbers are flat year on year. We've seen some heat on the generation, fully or partly offset by the supply margin increase. Given that your hedged price is around 180, you're locking in into the generation profits at 150. Shall we expect that your margin will double or stay the same, or how do you see this development? And second, I wanted to ask you about the capacity market. My question is really, how do you understand the discussion? Are we talking about the proper capacity market with auctioning, with pricing, with market mechanism? Or are we talking about just a pure subsidy to non-efficient power plants in the system as just a pure payment that we've seen in Germany happening as well? And if this is the case, is PGE going to receive any of these subsidies in this mechanism?
Okay, that may be the first question. When we are talking about the next year, probably that I think that you see the market and the expectation that the prices the average prices next year will be probably slightly lower than this year because of the forward market. That last year the prices for forwards were over 200 Polish zloty, and in average, as you see, this moment is close to 180. Next year probably this prices, what we see this moment from forwards, should be slightly lower. I think that 10-15 Polish zloty additionally. From other side, the same. We see quite big pressure on the prices in the retail. It means mostly the tariff A, B. But the same you heard about tariff G from 1st of July this year, that probably this margin which we this moment generate on the sales together, the wholesale and retail, probably next year will be slightly lower.
Understand.
The second question, capacity market. This is rather a question to the regulatory office or Marek Woszczyk, because he is an owner of potential solution which will be given to the market. We are satisfied that there is a common discussion and common agreement how the market should be run in the future to help investors like PGE and EATAUR and other investors to secure their investment in conventional generation. That's all. So what we know, it was a statement given by Marek Woszczyk at this conference on last Friday, that there will be several million of hundreds million of zlotys as a support for existing and future investment in conventional generation. But we will know details when the first decision will see the daily light, when the Marek Woszczyk will be ready to sign this decision and put this decision to the market. They promise it will be possible in September, so we have to wait. What is about details?
Let me phrase the question another way. Is any of your unit unprofitable on the cash basis, and what's the amount that you really need to recoup to cover your fixed costs on your assets, and what is the number you will provide to the ERO in the case you fight for the subsidies?
Maybe you will miss the last 6 or 10 months of discussion on the market about how the conventional generation is organized, that there is a problem. Maybe you missed this problem because this is not an important problem maybe for analysts, but for producer of energy, this is a very significant problem, how to cover all costs. And we discuss with you, with the market, all the time this question. Some of the generation is profitable, some of them is not profitable because of the age of our assets.
That's exactly the amount I'm asking you about, which is, what is the amount on your units that you cannot cover under current forward curves or operating conditions? Bełchatów is fully covered, Turów is fully covered. Is we talking in your case about Dolna Odra and Opole, and what are the amounts that you can't cover from just selling the power price in the market?
We are not able to put on the table these numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, morning, Leszek Iwaszko, Societe Generale. 2 questions, please. First question on coal prices in next year, 2014. How do you see this versus, as you said, slightly lower power prices that we see on the forward curve? Do you expect coal prices to be further lower in 2014? So the first question. The second is related to your pipeline of investments that you indicated on slide 5. The gas CHPs, you wrote that tenders in progress for Bydgoszcz, Pomorzany and Puławy I wonder how much these projects rely on the restoring of the cogeneration support system, and do you expect the system to be restored when exactly? Because there were expectations it will be restored mid this year. I don't know if anything is happening in this regard. Can you please comment on that? Thank you.
Okay, I think that from the coal perspective, you know probably very well the situation on the market, the worldwide market, when the prices this moment and expectation are that these prices should be roughly on the similar level between 70 to 80 US dollars per ton. What means that in Poland these prices should be somewhere around 11 Polish zloty. When we are talking about the, for gigajoule, when we are talking about the additional cost of transport and so on. And this is probably the price between, I don't know, maybe 10.5 to 11.5. This is the price, in our opinion, that it should be for next year.
Meaning they will be lower than this year?
They should be lower.
Lower.
I think maybe slightly below 10%, this difference, but they should be lower.
But cogeneration, of course, it is important to have a support. It's much easier to stay on the market with this kind of a generation, but of course, Gorzów, this is a separate case because there is a own source of.
Yeah, I mentioned rather Bydgoszcz, Pomorzany and Puławy. Yeah.
Depends on the construction of an agreement, especially in Puławy, between Puławy and ourselves. So we still work on this, how to put all things together to be profitable, even without yellow or orange certificates. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
But Bydgoszcz, we still thinking about it would be possible or not without certificates.
Okay.
Because, as you know, there is a promise from the government to finalize Trójpak to the end of the present year. But of course, last year there was the same promise at the same time to the end of 2012. So it's very difficult to predict the future, having no access to the, how to say, basic law solutions.
So you think there is a threat that the yellow certificates will not be restored, the support system will not be restored starting from next year?
May I advise you to ask this question to the Minister of Economy, because I'm not a Minister of Economy, so
Okay.
it's difficult to answer on behalf of him.
Thank you.
Now maybe question from our distant viewers. First from Olivier van Dusseler of Exane. What can we expect in the distribution segment in years ahead? Do you see any pressure from lower interest rates for the allowed return?
This interest rate related to the distribution?
Yeah.
That I think that we expect that it will have an impact on the results of distribution for the next year. But in our case, it should be offset by still increase of the assets, which probably should be finished in the end of 2014. And additional cost reduction that, in our opinion, the impact should be covered by our internal job. From the just pure WACC perspective, we are talking about slightly over 100 million impact. Obviously, when we expect some decrease between 1.5% in WACC.
And what's the guidance for LTC compensations in 2013, and what impact should we expect in 2014 and 2015?
I think that for this year, probably it should be additional 200-300 million, something like this in this value. For the next years, we this moment don't want to predict because it will depend on the prices situation. If we are talking about the same prices as this year, the impact should be similar as this year, but we will see what will happen on the market because each increase of the energy prices will decrease the long-term contract compensations.
And two more questions from Olivier. When can we expect an update of the strategy and business plan?
We also would like to know this answer as a board of directors. The strategy is still how to say, in which time, in which condition, discussed or will be discussed by our supervisory board. So it's still held by supervisory board on the discussion. That's all what I can add to this answer.
Okay. There's a lot of discussion recently on interim dividends in Poland. Should we expect an interim dividend from PGE?
I think that the question is to our owner.
So not to call for action. We don't have any correspondence on this subject between our owner and the company.
Okay, Piotr again.
Thank you for taking my follow-up questions. I wanted to ask you about the customers which you acquired in the first half. What type of customers you were getting in? You show us the very good figure, 16% increase. We're talking about A, B, or C customers. And then second question related to the, again, supply businesses. Are you ready for the G tariff liberalization? And what steps have you taken to prepare the company for the open competition in the detail market?
Regarding this increase, the biggest increase is in tariff A and additionally in tariff B. Tariff C and G are similar on the similar level as last year. This is mostly the big clients which we won tenders. Regarding tariff G, I think that we, as all of market at this moment, we can say that we are ready for the opening of this market, but we don't expect so big fight for the tariff G on this moment. From other side, the same is the question if this tariff G will be opened, because it was good moment to do this currently, and we this moment get the decision from regulator about some decrease of the tariff G. What I think that is question for the future, the opening the market.
And how much do you make per G customer, and how much do you expect to make, let's say, based on the current tariff? Let's say I want to understand what's the average household is paying to PGE as a margin booked in your EBITDA, and is it not worth really to attacking more of the customers?
Currently, when we have that such situation as today with the certificates, this is the profitable tariff. What wasn't sometimes in the history.
And what is the amount per household? And if you took steps to kind of enter into competition to G tariff, what is your initial estimate of the acquisition cost of a customer? Have you done these calculations? You show the mass advertisements. I presume there must be some numbers back up behind it.
As I heard, we don't expect so very big fight for tariff G. Firstly, we will see a bigger fight in tariff C, not tariff G. I think that this is the answer for this question.
Understand. May I ask the last question? Or, I've followed in very detail the discussion on the Pole project, and my recent understanding is that we're working on a new formula to make the project profitable. What do you think this project would require from your side for you to go ahead with it? Is it kind of subsidy from this Polish Infrastructure Investment Fund, or what would change you to be happy with the returns on it?
I almost mentioned everything about this because this is still under discussion, because this is not an easy case, as you know, very complicated, and the market is very complex, and there are lack of many low solutions on the market, so this is not so easy to get together all these factors and say this is a satisfactory situation for us. We negotiate with our contractors, with the subcontractors, with financial institutions to create the project profitable, as well as with the coal suppliers like Grupa, because we announced in our communication that we signed an agreement supporting contract Opole 2, improving a little bit, or maybe it's a worse description, improving rentability or profitability of this project. But there are a lot of cases should be improved, and we still work on this. One of this is to create capacity market to help us to finalize this investment. That's all. So we are waiting for some details, enabling us to, to be more encouraged to step forward with this project. As you know, there was a promise issued, the promise issued to our contractors to give them NTP. The next step is 15th of December. And up to 15th of December, we have to fit all gaps. That's all.
If I may have, I'm not sure that I understand it correctly. So you're working on the lowering the capex, lowering the fuel cost, and if yes, what would be the amounts? And in terms of a revenue figure, if we talk about capacity payment, would you not say it's unfair towards the other group in this country that started already construction of the plants? How would they feel about now providing subsidy to your power plant and not theirs power plants?
Ask the other companies about this feeling, not ourselves. This is the first question. I know this is not a fair question from your side. What they think about this? We don't, we didn't solve anything about the Enea or Tauron or Energa projects. The situation is known on the market by every participant from the market side. And we discuss how to solve this problem, not to freeze this problem, but how to solve this problem. But we are one of this panel discussion. But the other side, this is a Minister of Economy, regulatory body, PSE, as our partners to help us to solve these problems as well. This is not a subsidy only to us. As I mentioned before, this is a solution given by the regulatory to the market, helping existing capacity. Existing means building capacity and building in the future. What I mentioned before in the beginning of our conference. So that's all, but we have to wait for some details, which will be given to the market probably at the beginning of September, as it was promised by the Marek Woszczyk from Regulatory Office.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Now, few people ask same question. Is savings from efficiency program amount sustainable, and what should be expected this and next year?
Yes, absolutely. That this is the program which we are talking about, sustainable every year. And as it was announced 1.5 years ago, and this moment what we are working to make it much more deeper, that it will be absolutely achievable next year, and this amount should be increased.
Now question from Petr Bartek of Erste Group. What development in biomass prices do you expect?
I think that is the question to the whole market, not to us. It's very difficult to expect. We see that the prices went down, but still the price is on the level which in some cases is unprofitable to use it. That from our perspective, these prices should go down for the next 5, maybe 8 Polish zloty, but this moment expectation is very difficult to predict.
And now question from Kalim Aziz of Armajaro. Could you share your thoughts on cross-border grid connectivity development and cross-border transactions next year and then further?
We are obliged to join the common market between Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and ourselves. That's all. But the 2015 will be much interesting from this perspective, because Germany should join this common market of exchanging an energy across the border.
Yeah, but in really from the new investment in the nearest years, we don't see any big developments. What maybe just in Lithuania, but this moment nobody announced some big investment in other borders. That yeah, this is the job for grid operator. And last month we didn't hear any news about the new connections.
Any more questions on site? Piotr? Okay, there are a few more questions from the distant viewers, but they are so detailed that we will answer them via email. Sorry for this. We don't want to put you into sleep. So, last question. Oh yes, could you provide us with an updated CapEx outlook for 2013? Question from anonymous internet viewer.
I think that regarding the CapEx spendings for this year, it will be as we expected, somewhere close to 4 billion plus minus.
We are aligned to our plan.
Yeah, this is maybe just except of this prepayment for one big investment.
And the same anonymous follow-up with question, do you expect any further write-offs or assets revaluation due to electricity prices?
I think that we can probably talk about it at the end of the year. As you know, we did it at the end of 2012, quite big decrease of the asset value in Szczecin, in Dolna Odra. And this year, really, we don't expect so big impact. But from other side is still a question regarding this yellow or orange certificates, and it can have some impact for valuation of the CHPs, obviously except the Gorzów.
And now I don't see more questions even from the anonymous viewers. So thank you very much. See you in 10 weeks. Thank you.